You make no friends in the pits and you take no prisoners. 1 minute you're up 500,000 in soybeans and the next, boom, your kids don't go to college and they've repossessed your Bentley. Are you with me?
The revolution starts now.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Turn those machines back on!
You are about to enter the Peter Schiff Show.
Show me the money!
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The Peter Schiff Show is on.
I don't know when they decided that they wanted to make a virtue out of selfishness.
Your money, your stories, your freedom. The Peter Schiff Show.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Shopify. Shopify is a platform designed for anyone to sell anywhere, giving entrepreneurs like myself the resources once reserved for just big business. Sign up for a $1 per month trial at shopify.com/gold, all lowercase.
The Peter Schiff Show.
Well, the 45th president of the United States is now the 47th president of the United States. Donald Trump took the oath of office yesterday and is now back in the Oval Office. President of the United States, certainly better than the alternative, but hardly the ideal. I have a lot to say on today's podcast regarding what's happened thus far with the Trump presidency. But before I get into what's happened since Donald Trump was sworn in, I want to talk about a few things that happened in the days just prior to the presidential inauguration on the Martin Luther King Day holiday. First, we had the preemptive pardons issued by former President Joe Biden to, I don't know, his entire family, a bunch of other members of Congress, all the people that were on the January 6th committee, Fauci, I forget who else. And, you know, the problematic aspect of these pardons is people are not being pardoned of a crime that they've, been convicted of, or even a crime that they've been charged with. People are being pardoned who have never been charged with anything. Basically, what Biden is saying is if any of these individuals did anything wrong at any point over the last 11 years, I pardon them for whatever they might have done that I don't even know that they did, that somebody might discover that they did, which I think is a real abuse of the whole system of a pardon, to just preemptively pardon people. But that's what he's done en masse. And in fact, Joe Biden himself, I saw footage, or tapes from years ago where he came out and said that that would be wrong to do something like that. And of course, that's exactly what he has done. But of course, hypocrisy and Joe Biden have gone hand in hand for a long time. So it doesn't surprise me that he would do exactly what he said he would never do and that he shouldn't do, which, happened the same way with his son Hunter. Oh, I would never pardon my son Hunter. I'm going to accept, whatever justice does. I mean, nobody is above the law. And then, of course, he pardons Hunter. But, Hunter's not alone now. Everybody's got these pardons. The only, silver lining of this, and I hope this happens, is that now that everybody has been given a pardon, Congress can fully investigate everything that went down, I think, with January 6th. And all of the, the instigating of it. They can find out what happened by subpoenaing all these people who were pardoned. Because if Congress subpoenas you, you got to show up. Right? You can't not show up, or you're in contempt of Congress, and you can go to jail for that. But normally, if Congress subpoenas you, and they ask you a lot of questions, you could just take the fifth, right? Well, I don't want to answer that, because what if I say something that incriminates me? So you could plead the fifth. But now, because these guys have all been pardoned, they can't plead the fifth. So they have to talk. So they have to show up if they get subpoenaed. And now they have to talk. And they have to tell the truth. Because if they lie, that's perjury. And that's not protected by the pardons. See, pardons are for crimes that you committed in the past. They don't cover crimes that you commit in the future after the pardons are granted. I mean, that would be ridiculous. I mean, like giving somebody carte blanche to go out and commit crimes if they know they've been pardoned. So the pardons are for the crimes of the past, not the crimes of the future. So this is a great opportunity to force a lot of people on a witness stand, force them to speak truthfully, and if anybody is caught in a lie, well, now you've got a perjury charge that you can now pursue. So hopefully this happens, and some of these bad actors, at a minimum, if they don't go to jail, they at least have to tell the truth so that the public has a better idea of the lies that they were told and what happened, and not just with January 6th, but a lot of other things. And it'd be great, to get Fauci up there and, find out all about the vaccines and COVID and all that. But the fact that Biden would even do this, it's really inappropriate. No other president has done this. And I think it's interesting, too, he's like, oh, it's because Trump may go after them. You mean the way the Biden administration went after Trump, right? He's afraid of Donald Trump doing exactly what he did, right? But they established this bad precedent, and now they've, established another one. But, it's not just former President Biden, I think, that was acting inappropriately in the days leading up to the inauguration. President Trump also, I think, was very inappropriate in the launching of his meme coin, the Trump coin, which came out on Friday evening. And just as inappropriate, the Melania coin, which I think came out the following day. Was it Saturday or Sunday? I forget. But over the weekend, both these coins came out. And I really think it is shameless. I think it diminishes the office of the president for Donald Trump to be profiting in this way off of his presidential win. I mean, in the first term, people were upset. Hey, Donald Trump, you have the emoluments provision of the Constitution. The president's not supposed to receive, compensation. And there was, problems about, well, he's got a hotel and people might stay in his hotel as some kind of quid pro quo. And it's not, he shouldn't collect, the hotel revenue while he's president. I mean, this dwarfs that. If you look at the value of this Trump meme coin, as of now, I'm recording this, it's at $47, which gives it a market cap of about $45 billion. That's the fully diluted, assuming that all the tokens are issued. And they're all, they all released over a 3-year time period. So over 3 years, they're all going to be out there. But even the ones that are already in the float, they've got a market cap of $9 billion. But $45 billion for what? For nothing. I mean, the company's worth more than Newmont Mining, which is the world's biggest gold mining company. And in fact, I think Sunday evening, when it peaked out at about $75, it was worth more than 150% of the market cap of the world's largest gold mining company. I mean, it was worth a lot more than DJT, which is the Donald Trump stock, which at least is a business. I mean, it doesn't make any money, barely has any revenue. But the meme coin has no revenue, doesn't even have the possibility of having a revenue. But I don't like the fact that the Trump family is cashing in like this. And in fact, this opens up the opportunity when Donald Trump and his family members own all these coins. I mean, it really opens up a way for people to curry favor or bribe Trump. All you have to do is buy his coins from him. When Biden, was president or vice president, and people wanted to bribe him, it was a lot more complicated. I mean, they had to run all the bribes through all these shell companies, and each shell company was owned, by another Biden family member. It was a very complicated process to bribe, Biden. But, bribing Donald Trump, I'm joking, but I mean, Donald Trump promised to make government more efficient. Well, it's certainly a lot more efficient to bribe him. All you have to do is buy the token or buy the Melania token. If you look at the description, you go to the page and Donald Trump's Twitter page or X page was constantly promoting this, right? And he was promoting it, of course, on Truth Social and all over the place, getting people to want to buy this coin, right? Which is, just purely promoting gambling. A lot of people are going to lose money in these coins. Some people have already made a tremendous amount of money. The people that got in really early, that were like prepared for it and knew about it, bought them and flipped them and made millions and millions of dollars. But whatever money is made, certain people equals the money that's lost by a lot of other people. The people that voted for Trump, the people that Donald Trump supposedly cares about, a lot of them are going to lose money. But here, look at what it says on, this is the gettrumpmemes.com, right? Trump memes are intended to function as an expression of support for and engagement with the ideals and beliefs embodied by the symbol $Trump and the associated artwork, and are not intended to be or to be the subject of an investment opportunity, investment contract, or security of any type. BS. That's exactly what they are. I mean, why else would anybody buy these things? I mean, it's not like, a Trump hat or a T-shirt or some kind of, memorabilia. I mean, what do you got when you buy one of these? You get nothing, right? I mean, on his X post, this is what he put out on January 17th. My new official meme is here! Exclamation point. It's time to celebrate everything we stand for. Winning, join my special Trump community. Special? What's special about this? Anybody can buy it. What's so special about a meme coin that any idiot can buy, right? But join my special community. Get your Trump now. Go to gettrumpmemes.com. This is shameless promotion. He ends it by saying, have fun, exclamation point. What do you mean have fun? I mean, the only way you have fun buying a Trump meme coin is if you make money. I mean, I can't imagine it's fun. I mean, I didn't buy any, so I don't know how enjoyable the whole process is of going to your wallet. Now, I remember I clicked on it. You could buy it with a credit card. You could buy it with crypto. I mean, it doesn't look like, that fun to go through this process. What's fun is making money, right? What people think is fun is buying it and then selling it at a higher price. That's what's fun, right? What's not fun is losing money in the coin, but it's all about gambling. This is massive mania, right, on steroids now. And Donald Trump is contributing, as the president of the United States, exploiting his name and the fact that he just won this election, taking the opportunity to basically sell this crap to the public, with the presidential seal of approval. And now he gets his wife in on it. I don't know if Barron Trump's going to launch one, and Trump Jr. and Eric and, Ivanka and Tiffany and everybody. Are they all going to come out with their own, tokens that people are supposed to gamble with? So I was embarrassed, for the country that this is going on. But, what's also funny about it is, watching people try to talk about it. I was watching Anthony Pompliano. I like Anthony, he's a nice guy. Unfortunately, he's gone down the wrong path with Bitcoin and stuff. But I'm watching him on CNBC and they're asking him to explain these meme coins. Like, what's a meme coin? Like, what the hell is it? And, he has a hard time really coming up with a simple definition. And the reason is because when you define it, you define Bitcoin. There's really no difference. I mean, these coins, they have a limited supply. The Trump coin has 1 billion. That's the hard cap, right? There'll never be more than 1 billion, right? So they're scarce. So why aren't they digital gold? Why aren't they the same as Bitcoin? Why aren't they better than Bitcoin? They're on the Solana network, not the Ethereum network, which caused Solana to pop because they chose Solana. But they chose Solana because it's a lot cheaper and faster than Ethereum. Well, it's same thing with Bitcoin, right? The Solana is better than the Bitcoin blockchain from that respect. So why is Bitcoin any more valuable than Trump coin or Melania coin? They're not. I mean, Bitcoin's a meme coin. It's the same. What's the meme? What's the Bitcoin meme? Well, it's digital gold. Yeah, that's the meme. It's not actually digital gold. It's got nothing in common with gold. It's not a precious metal. It's nothing. It's all about perception. But we're fueling this now. We're fueling this bubble. it was fart coin and Haktua girl coin or all this nonsense. How can anybody look at this and not understand what it is? Meanwhile, the one promise that I think Trump hopefully won't keep, which he never actually officially made, is this Bitcoin strategic reserve. And I don't know if the fact that he's launched these tokens, if that, they're saying, hey, this brings him closer to the crypto community. I mean, to me, he's making fun of it. I mean, it's just like, the Dogecoin. And why is that? Although I understand Doge isn't necessarily capped like some of the coins, but there's other joke coins that are out there that have hard caps. But it's embarrassing that Trump did this. That this is, I mean, in fact, I don't even know like how much he has to do with it. I mean, who posted that stuff? Does Trump post his own stuff on X, or does he just have his family members or other people within the organization? Did they go out and post that stuff? Because I would think that Trump had more important things on his mind. He's about to be inaugurated president, that he's spending his time, shilling his shit coin, right, or whatever his meme coin. But anyway, let me move past that topic and talk about some more serious stuff. But again, the serious nature of what was going on was really cheapened by this promotion, and I would assume even that people in the crypto community should be embarrassed by this. Anyway, we got a quick commercial break. We'll be right back, so stick around. So it's a new year, 2025, and you're probably thinking, this year is going to be different. I'm going to build something for myself. I'm tired of working for someone else, and I know I have a great business idea, but how do I make it a reality? Shopify is your key to building your brand, opening up shop, and watching those sales roll in. Forget coding and design skills. With tons of customizable templates, it's as easy as drag and drop. Plus, their social media tools connect your channels for seamless selling where your customers already are. Don't sweat the small stuff. Shopify's got shipping, taxes, and payments covered. Focus on what matters, growing your business. Hesitate and you'll regret it. Don't let someone else steal your idea. This time next year, you'll be kicking yourself for not taking action today. So take action. Your first sale is closer than you think with Shopify. What I love about Shopify is that no matter how ambitious your growth targets are, it equips you with the necessary tools to seize control and elevate your business to new heights. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/gold, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/gold to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/gold. All right. Now, before I get into some of the Trump executive orders and what's been accomplished, I want to also comment on the fact that you've got all these CEOs, these heavy hitters in the tech industry, and in fact, earlier this evening, before I did the podcast, I know Trump had a press conference. He was there to announce the formation of this new joint venture between a bunch of tech companies. Stargate, I think he called it. It's SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle, investing like $500 billion, $500 billion, I think, over a few years. I think $100 billion in the first year to build out data centers and some other AI infrastructure, building it here in the United States. So that's what is exciting Trump, that these investments are going to be taking place in the United States rather than in Europe or someplace else. But you've got all these CEOs that are, cozying up to Donald Trump. And at first blush, you would think, oh, this is great, right? This is a pro-business president. And so it's good that all these businessmen want to be so tight with the president. Well, I don't necessarily look at it that way. I mean, you got to, see the other side of the coin. One of the reasons that a lot of businessmen want to get into the president's good favor is because they're afraid of him. They're afraid that he's going to do something, that might harm them. On the other hand, he could do something that will help them, because I think Donald Trump intends to try to micromanage parts of the economy from the Oval Office, to try to pick winners and losers, his own version of central planning because, he's got a big ego. He thinks he's a great businessman. And in some sense, he's a good promoter. But, he's also had his share of flops, companies that have gone bankrupt, right? But it's one thing when you're investing your own money and you succeed and fail. It's something totally different when you invest taxpayer money. Government should not be in the business of picking winners and losers. Even people who have had a good track record of picking winners with their own money should not be trying to do it with taxpayer money. This should be left to a free market, but that's not what Trump is about. In some ways, he's pro-capitalism, but in other ways, he's not. And I look at these businessmen, and they want Trump to use the power of the White House to their advantage and to the disadvantage of their competitors. And that's not what you want. You don't want the government tipping the scale in any direction. You want the government staying out and allowing capitalism to flourish, not getting involved. And if you remember when Trump was president the first time, he would come out and criticize this company and the stock would go down and he'd say something good about a company. But I remember when he did the tariffs the first time, you had all these companies that were applying for waivers because they didn't want to have to pay the tariffs on the stuff they imported. And so Trump would be selective. Yes, you get a waiver, you don't get a waiver, right? So people are trying to get into his good graces. I don't like any of that. It's not free market. Would Harris have been even more anti-free market? Sure, probably. But Trump, again, he's not a libertarian. He's not even a conservative, right? We didn't elect Ron Paul by any stretch of the imagination. And I know the libertarians are happy that, he's pardoned Ross Albright. That was a promise that Trump made, and he fulfilled it, I guess, a couple hours ago. But most of Trump's agenda is very anti-libertarian, and he's certainly not a Javier Milei, right? So, it could have been worse, but, we could have had a much better president if we had the opportunity, but we didn't, right? So we got Trump. Anyway, but let me go in to some of the things. So first of all, Trump talked about now we are in a golden age of America, a new golden age. It begins right now. Why? How is it a golden age? Because Trump is president? He was president, from 2016 to 2020. Was that the golden age? It's the same guy, right? But, when you talk about the golden age, I guess it harkens, the, memories, not memories, but, back to the Gilded Age, which I think Mark Twain came up with that term, Gilded Age. And it was, he wasn't calling it a golden age because he looked at it as more of superficial, the prosperity, because, when you have gilded gold, it's gold on the top, right? But it's like wood beneath it, right? You look at all the, the palaces in France, when they're all gold, Versailles, yeah, it's gilded wood, right? It's not solid gold. They put gold on the outside. And so the idea is like, hey, we have, these robber barons, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, right? These guys are really rich, but then you have all these poor people. So it's really not a golden age. It's a gilded age because it's not solid like gold, which I think, that's not really a good characterization of the period because, yes, there were some very rich people in the Gilded Age of capitalism. I would call it the Golden Age. And there were people who were poor. And so what I think Mark Twain was looking at and other people is they looked at the difference. Here's some really, really rich people and here's some poor people. Now, apart from the fact that wealth inequality is greater now, the divide between the wealth of the top 1% and everybody else is much greater now than it was during the Gilded Age. So forget about that. But what people often overlooked at the time was the poor people in 1880, 1890, 1900 who were working in factories. Even though they were poor relative to the owners of those factories, they were less poor than they were when they still worked on farms. See, the people who went from the farms to the factories, they did it because the factory jobs were better. Yes, the working conditions might have been bad, but they were worse back on the farm. And they worked harder on the farm. Nobody was forced to leave a farm to go get a job in a factory. They did it because it was better. And all the people that came to America from Europe right, to work in those factories. They didn't come here from Europe because working in factories was worse than where they were in Europe. Their lot in lives improved, so much so that they invited their friends and family to come join them. So if it was so bad, why didn't they leave? Why did they invite more people to come? So when you're just looking at the difference between the rich and the poor, and you're saying, hey, this is not shared prosperity, you have to appreciate that the so-called poor are much richer than they were before the capitalism. And of course, it took more time to really build up a wealthier middle class. But all of that was the result of American capitalism and the real golden age, which was before the income tax, before the Federal Reserve. We are not embarking on another golden age. We're not going to get rid of the income tax. We're not going to get rid of Social Security and Medicare and Obamacare and all these rules and regulations that have been layered onto the economy for the 100 years since we got out of that period. So no, I mean, this is all marketing. This is like, Trump steaks is what's going on, trying to say this is a new golden age of America. It's just a bunch of nonsense. I mean, we're still heading for an economic crisis, and so far nothing that's been proposed is going to change that. But among the executive orders that Trump gave, I mean, one, he talked about inflation, and he said that we've had all this inflation, and it's been caused by an increase in spending and rising energy costs, he said. And he's going to attack inflation by drill, baby, drill, and getting more energy. Well, we didn't have inflation because of rising energy. In fact, energy has been a relative bargain. Other prices have gone up a lot more than energy, but it's inflation that caused energy prices and other prices to rise. It's not the other way around. And it's not just the government spending, it's all the Fed money printing. And that went on during Trump's term, and it continued under Biden's term, and it's going to resume in Trump's second term. So even though he's talking about this war on inflation, inflation is going to win. He did lift the ban on LNG exports, which Biden signed. Apparently, people said that he didn't even understand it when he signed it. He didn't even know what he was signing, which even questions the legality of an incompetent president signing executive orders that he doesn't even read. But it's a good thing that they reversed it, but it does mean higher natural gas prices, because one of the reasons that I think the Biden administration wanted to prevent us from exporting our natural gas is to keep more of it here. And that would, reduce the price because we'd have greater supply. But if we're allowed to export that supply to Europe, then that's less domestic supply. And that means higher prices. Not that I'm against it. I'm for free markets. But that was part of maybe Biden's attempt to artificially suppress energy prices here by preventing us from exporting what we could have exported, which would have somewhat reduced our trade deficits. Now, Donald Trump also announced a hiring freeze and a regulation freeze. Now, this is not new. Donald Trump did the same thing when he was elected the first time, right? I think it was an executive order, day 1, day 2. He announced a freeze on federal hiring. And then at some point, I forget how many weeks went by, but he basically removed the freeze and they continued to hire. And in fact, I checked it out, and on Donald Trump's watch during his term, the federal workforce grew by 2%. Now, you might think, all right, well, that's not that much. Well, that's a lot of people because it's a big workforce. But under Obama in his second term, it only grew by 1%. And in fact, I took a look at George W. Bush, and in his first term, the first 4 years, the federal workforce grew by 1.5%. And in his second term, it grew by 1%. So Donald Trump grew the government more than Bush in terms of the number of employees. So why is it going to be any different this time? I don't believe it. I mean, yes, he might have talked about it, but he talked about it the first time too, and he didn't do it. And I looked at, Biden. The growth of federal employees under Biden seems about the same as it was under Trump. It looks like it's going to be maybe 1.5%, 2%. I mean, I don't think all the numbers are in. Now, I know a lot of government jobs were created under Biden, but most of them were at the state and local level. That's where the real hiring binge came. It wasn't the federal government. I mean, Biden continued to hire, I think, around, again, the same pace as Trump. But it was the state and local governments that hired all these workers that, are on now the state payrolls. And again, these are not productive jobs. These are unproductive jobs that drive up the trade deficits because, they spend their paychecks on imports. Anyway, we got one more commercial break. Got a lot more to discuss, so stick around. We're coming right back. Looking for a boost in the bedroom? Hims is here to help with personalized ED treatment options, and it's all online. Guys, our lives are stressful enough without adding bedroom performance to the list of worries. Hims provides access and treatment that helps you stay hard, last longer, and boost your confidence so you're ready whenever the moment calls. Hims is revolutionizing men's healthcare by delivering affordable sexual health solutions directly to you. They offer a range of trusted ED treatments, including chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and their generics at prices up to 95% less than traditional options. The entire process is 100% online. No awkward doctor's visits required. Simply answer a few questions on their website, and a licensed medical provider will determine the best treatment for you. If prescribed, your medication will be shipped straight to your door for free. No insurance? No problem. With one low price overseeing everything from treatments to ongoing care, Hims ensures a hassle-free experience. Join the hundreds of thousands of satisfied men who trust Hims to help them find the right ED solution. Take the first step today and experience the difference with Hims. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/gold. That's Hims, HIMS.com/gold for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/gold. The product mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or efficacy by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies depending on product and subscription plan. All right, so I'm discussing some of the executive orders, I think 42, something like that Trump signed into law, and then he was tossing the pens into the crowd for souvenirs. See, those are real souvenirs, right? You can actually hold on to that pen, unlike the meme coins. But a couple of things that he did, let's see, he withdrew the United States from the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Accords. I'm in favor of that, so that was positive. He did have an initiative or an executive order on ending birthright citizenship. That's going to be a tough one to stick. The 14th Amendment says that if you're born in the United States, you're a citizen. And it's going to be tough to argue that doesn't apply. I know that when the amendment was originally passed, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments all had to do with the emancipation of the slaves, the ending of slavery. And the goal of the 14th Amendment was to make sure that the slaves and their children were all United States citizens. But it doesn't read like that. And the courts have not held in the past that the 14th Amendment is limited to the slaves and their children that were alive, back in 1860s, 1870s. They could have limited it. They could have said those people who were slaves and their children born here are citizens. No, the way the amendment reads, it just says that if you're born in America and subject to a jurisdiction, which anybody born here would be, then you're a citizen. Now, I think that would exempt maybe a diplomat. If you're a diplomat and you have a kid and you're immune from U.S. laws, you got diplomatic immunity, then I don't think your children are citizens because of the diplomatic immunity that they hold. But, if an illegal crosses the border, they don't have any immunity. So I think it's going to be difficult for that to hold up in court. One of the things that he announced was he declared all the drug cartels to be terrorist organizations. And it seems like Donald Trump really wants to escalate the war on drugs, which, again, is a very unlibertarian position and something that I disagree with. I don't want to escalate the war on drugs. I'd like to end the war on drugs by decriminalizing the drugs. That's what I want. I'm not in favor of people doing, heroin or cocaine or any of those drugs. Just like I'm not in favor of people smoking cigarettes. People can smoke if they want to. I advise not to, right? But I think it should be the same with these drugs. right? Yes, they're bad for you. There's a lot of things that are bad for you. I mean, junk food is bad for you. We don't ban it. And so I think that if drugs were legal, look, cocaine was legal, right? It was in Coca-Cola. That's where the name came from. I don't encourage people to do drugs, but I recognize that the problem isn't the drugs so much as the fact that they're illegal. That's where all the crime comes from. The crime is here because the profits, and the profits are here because they're illegal. Look, there are no cartels that are smuggling cigarettes across the Mexican border or liquor. Why? Because those are legal products and we can buy them from reputable companies. And we don't have to worry that, there's some kind of impurities in our liquor that we're going to end up dying with, right? That's the problem, with a lot of the drugs. It's because the drugs are expensive. The criminals who make them lace them with cheaper ingredients that are actually more harmful, like fentanyl, right? A lot of times people, when they die of, cocaine, it's because there's fentanyl in there. And, if that happens, you can't sue your drug dealer. Hey, you gave me bad heroin or bad cocaine. No, I mean, there's no court that you could sue it. I mean, that's it. But, if you have a reputable company that's selling you a product and now you have somebody that you can sue, you can have somebody that can be responsible. So, if you have legal drugs where they're available, even if they're by prescription, I mean, then you can deal with drugs as a health issue instead of a crime issue. A lot of the crimes in America are committed by drug addicts who are stealing money so they can buy drugs because the drugs are expensive. If they were legal, they'd be a lot cheaper. So at least they wouldn't have to steal from people to support their habit, right? So because that's what makes the drug problem a problem for everybody. You may not do drugs at all, but your house gets robbed by somebody who does, right? That's a big problem. I'd rather have somebody doing drugs and not stealing from me. But, everybody always says, if we legalize drugs, we're going to have a lot more drug use. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But that's not the point. But we already had an experiment, prohibition. We made alcohol illegal in the United States, which was illegal. I think the whole constitutional amendment to prohibit alcohol was unconstitutional, but be that as it may, we had it and then we repealed it. But they've looked back on the records and they can tell, from the ingredients that are used to make alcohol and everything, that alcohol consumption went up during Prohibition. So the government made it illegal to drink, and then more people drank as a result. See, almost everything the government does backfires. The government said, hey, too many people are drinking. Let's outlaw drinking. And the minute they did that, more people drank because it became, more fun. It was, you were doing something you weren't supposed to do. In Manhattan, right? There were 15,000 bars in Manhattan before Prohibition. At the peak, there were 30,000 speakeasies in Manhattan. So there were twice as many bars during Prohibition as there were before. It was even more fun to go to a bar when it was illegal. So how do you know? Maybe it's possible that we make drugs legal and then fewer people will do them. How many kids do it because they want to rebel? They want to do exactly what they're told not to do, like reverse psychology. Psychology. Tell some kid not to do something, and the first thing they want to do is that they want to do it, right? You make it more popular, So I don't even know that would happen. But again, if you believe in freedom, people should be free to do what they want. Right. You have these women that say, oh, people, abortion, they say it's your own body. Well, it's a better argument. If you want to do cocaine, it's your own body, right? You should be able to put whatever you want in your own body. It's not the government's business. What is the government's business is when you steal from me to buy the cocaine. But, if cocaine is cheaper and if cocaine is pure so that if you take it, you have a lot less chance of dying. Right. And I think, too, if it was legal, if you had to go to a doctor to maybe get a prescription for cocaine, the doctor could try to talk you out of it. Like, hey, why do you want to do this? This is going to, here's all the bad things that are going to happen to you if you start this habit. Whereas, your drug dealer doesn't try to talk you out of buying it. He tries to hook you into it. Hey, here's some free cocaine, get you to use it, then and get more. But all this created. So if you want to get rid of all the gangs, and all the crime associated with it, then just decriminalize it, legalize it. The gangs are gone immediately. That's the only way to win the war on drugs, is to surrender. And it's not, a surrender, because you're letting freedom win. Here's like, what should basically convince anybody that this is a futile war, that Donald Trump should not be escalated, right? If you want to know where drug use is the most pervasive in America, it's in prison, in jails, right? On a per person basis, you have a greater use of illegal drugs like heroin, like cocaine, right, in prisons than you have in the general population. So think about a prison, right? It's surrounded by walls, barbed wire, I don't know, dogs, snipers, whatever. It's a jail. The people in the jail basically have no freedom, right? Because they're under complete government control and surveillance. Yet in that environment of complete government control, of basically like enslaved people with no rights, the government can't keep drugs out of prisons. The government can't stop people from using drugs in a prison. So if they can't do that, how the hell are they going to keep drugs out of the United States? We've got huge borders, north and south. We got oceans, east and west. People are free. We have our own homes. There isn't a chance that the government is going to stop people from doing drugs. And the more they try, the harder they clamp down on it, the bigger the incentive to smuggle it in, right? Because it just increases the price and therefore the profit for the people that successfully bring the drugs in. And so you can't win the war. And all that happens is we have more and more casualties. Collateral damage goes up and up and up. So I wish Trump understood this. But, it is popular to just say drugs are bad. Let's go after the bad guys. Let's stop drugs from coming in. Yeah. Because I remember they tried to use that against me when I was going to run for Senate in Connecticut. I never really talked about this because it wasn't an issue. I didn't want to make legalizing drugs an issue of my campaign, but Linda McMahon made it an issue at the nominating convention. She had her minions running around the floor, talking about, hey, Peter Schiff wants to legalize cocaine. Because I spoke about it on like a radio show or something. And even though I never made an issue of it, they tried to turn people against me because they know in the Republican Party, they don't want you to be soft on drugs, right? They're not necessarily libertarian. A lot of Republicans, they want to clamp down on drugs because they don't like drugs. Yeah, I don't like them either. I don't do them. But again, there's a lot of things that I don't do that other people do, and I don't want to prevent them from doing it, right? Just because I disagree with it or just because I think it's bad. Look, people buy Bitcoin. They buy Trump coin. They buy Melania coin. I think it's foolish, but I don't want to make it illegal. People want to do that, they can do it, right? I don't want to ban it. But again, this is just another, very unlibertarian thing that Trump is doing. And of course, it's going to cost more money. We're going to spend more money on this. We're going to waste money, and crime's going to go up, right? It's not going to go down. Just like the government lost the war on poverty, the government always loses the war on drugs. Can't be won. Anyway, he did declare a national emergency on the southern border. This is separate from the drugs, just to keep the immigrants from coming in. I guess they're going to try to step up the efforts on the border. He talked about renaming Mount McKinley, which I didn't even realize that Mount McKinley wasn't called Mount McKinley. That just shows you, how much attention I paid. Apparently it's Mount Denali, which is it's a Native American, Alaskan, name from, I don't know, way back when. I never even heard of that, but apparently that's been the name. And I think Obama made it official or something. And so it wasn't called Mount McKinley when President Trump was there the first time, but this time it's, he decided to rename it. He also declared that the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. I don't know. That's kind of a slight to Texas or Louisiana or some of these other states that he could have picked. But I don't know. The Gulf of America could mean South America too. It doesn't necessarily mean the United States. Could have called it the Gulf of the United States. I don't know, the significance of that stuff. But again, this is form over substance. I mean, we have real serious problems in this country, and they're not going to be solved by renaming the Gulf of Mexico. One of the things he didn't talk about specifically were tariffs, although he did talk about forming the External Revenue Department, which is a fraud because there is no way to collect external revenue. It's all internal, right? This is just packaging. And, one of the reasons that Trump likes President McKinley is because he had tariffs. And Trump thinks that's great, right? He wants to go back to the tariffs. Trump thinks that, tariffs made us rich. They didn't. I mean, yes, during the time where we had unprecedented economic prosperity, we also ran the government on tariffs. But the tariffs were not the source of our prosperity. That is bad logic. The reason we were rich as a country when we ran on tariffs was because we had a tiny government that you could support with tariffs. That's why we were rich, because government was small. Government was so small, we could pay for the entire cost with tariffs and some taxes on liquor and tobacco and firearms. The government ran on excise taxes, of which tariffs are one, right? And so we were rich because we could run government on tariffs. The reason we're not rich now the way we were, we don't have the type of economic growth that we had then, is because we have a massive government and we can't pay for it with tariffs. So we pay for it with an income tax, which is inherently a much worse tax than a tariff. When people hear me criticizing Trump's tariffs, they think, well, don't you think they're better than income taxes? Yes, I do. We're not talking about getting rid of the income tax and having a tariff. We're talking about adding tariffs on top of the income tax. Now, yes, they are talking about reducing income tax rates and then imposing tariffs to make up the difference. So that would be okay from a tax perspective. But what I am arguing against is Trump's position that the tariffs aren't going to cost us anything, that the tariffs are a tax on Canada, Mexico, that they're a tax on China. They are not. And in fact, when America ran on tariffs and people were much more familiar with tariffs, you would have to think that Americans who were around in the 19th century knew a lot more about tariffs than Americans today. In fact, they knew a lot more about everything than they do today. I mean, we had much better schools, even when people only went to school to the 6th grade. They were typically more knowledgeable than a lot of our college grads are today. But people had an understanding of tariffs. They knew what they were and they knew who paid them. Because the reason that America, the government, was able to sell the public on the income tax, and I've spoken about this on my podcast before, but I will speak about it again. The agitation for the income tax was to get rid of tariffs. Now, why did people want to get rid of tariffs? I mean, if foreigners paid them, it's a freebie. The reason that Americans wanted to get rid of tariffs is because they knew that the average American paid them, right? They were a tax on consumers, right? And so it was a middle-class tax. It was a lower-class tax. And what the politicians said is, let's get rid of these tariffs and replace them with an income tax that only taxes the really rich. And so all you regular people who have normal jobs and earn the equivalent of maybe 40 to 100, 200,000 a year who are paying tariffs, we're going to eliminate all those tariffs and we're just going to tax Rockefeller. We're going to tax the equivalent of billionaires. They weren't necessarily billionaires back then. They were millionaires when millions still meant something. But they said, we're going to tax these really rich people and let you off the hook. And that's why the public wanted the income tax, because they didn't want to have to pay the tariffs. They knew back then, and nobody lied to them back then to try to claim that the Europeans were paying the tariffs. Everybody knew that every tariff imposed by McKinley or anybody else, that every tariff was paid by American citizens, by people who buy the products subject to tariff or products that compete with the products that are subject to tariff. And so now Donald Trump is trying to say that tariffs are not a tax hike. Yes, they are. And they're going to be paid by Americans. Now, there's another thing, again, that I disagree with. One of the criticisms of tariffs are misplaced. People are still saying, the Democrats anyway, a lot of the Republicans are afraid to criticize tariffs. But the Democrats say, oh, well, the tariffs are going to cause inflation because prices are going to go up. They're not going to cause inflation. We're going to have inflation, but it's not going to be the tariffs that causes it. See, all things being equal, let's say there was no expansion of the money supply, right? We had balanced budget, right? So the government's not creating inflation. And now the government imposes tariffs on whatever, across the board or certain goods. Government slaps on tariffs. Let's say they're 20% tariffs. And some goods go up by 20% in price. That's not inflation. That's just certain goods that have gone up in price. But if money supply remains the same, if my paycheck is the same, and I have to spend more money to buy certain goods that have been tariffed, I have less money left over to buy other goods. So what happens? The price of those other goods goes down because demand goes down. And so now in order to sell those goods that are not subject to tariff, you cut your prices. And so there is no net increase in prices. So what would happen in America if we get tariffs, right, on all these goods? Then all those goods, all the things that you buy, on Amazon or Walmart, all that stuff would get more expensive. But other things might get cheaper. Maybe your barber will have to cut the cost of a haircut because, you don't have as much money left over. So you don't have as much to pay for a haircut, right? So I think a lot of the services will end up being cheaper, which of course is bad for the barber who now can't charge as much for a haircut because his customers have spent too much money paying tariffs, right? But that's what's going to happen. Some prices are going to go down. Now, of course, I don't expect the price of anything to go down because they're going to keep on creating inflation, with or without the tariffs. But on a relative basis, the tariffs will make the cost of the goods that have been subject to the tariffs more expensive relative to the stuff that's not subject to the tariffs, which are, a lot of the services, which are not going to be tariffs. So they don't cause inflation, but they are a tax, and they are going to be paid by Americans. Now, will American businesses benefit from the tariffs? Some will, but some will be hurt by the tariffs. I got an email from a customer. I'm not a customer, I don't know if he's a customer, but he's a listener. He may be a customer too, but he emailed me. And he said, well, isn't it, unfair that like Europe exempts the exporters from the VAT taxes? So isn't that a subsidy? And no, it's not. The way the VAT tax works in Europe, right? That's how the Europeans are paying for government. I mean, they're also paying with an income tax, right? It's not like that they're only paying the VAT. But the VAT tax is meant to cover the cost of the services that you are receiving from government. Well, if something is being exported out of the European Union and it's being bought by an American, the American is not getting the benefit of any government services in Europe. He's in America. So why should a product that's exported to a non-European be subject to a VAT tax that is to pay for services provided to Europeans? So it makes perfect sense that the VAT is subtracted out from exports. And otherwise, European countries would be at a competitive disadvantage if they had to stick a VAT tax on an exported product where the person who's buying the product doesn't get any of the government services that the VAT is being paid for. So that is not a government subsidy, right? That just makes it easier for the government to have the VAT tax on people that are there. Just like, look, if somebody in Europe buys a product in the United States and we ship it out, if it's manufactured, not that we manufacture much, but let's say we made something in New York and we ship it to Europe, it's not subject to the New York state sales tax. That's sales tax. In fact, even states, if you buy something in one state, they ship it out. The state doesn't charge the sales tax unless, now they do more often, because they have a location. But in theory, right, if the goods are being bought out of state, the state that you bought it from, they don't charge you the sales tax. Now, the state that you live in may try to charge you a use tax because they say, hey, you're avoiding our sales taxes by buying stuff out of state, so we're going to charge you a use tax. But that's the same concept as the European countries rebating the VAT. In fact, when you go to Europe as a tourist and you go and buy something, you get a coupon, and at the airport, you get the VAT tax back. Why? Because you're not there to benefit from the services. So why should you pay for them? So that's not a unfair competition or a subsidy. But look, even if some countries are dumb enough to try to protect their businesses, I mean, there's one thing, if the goal of a tariff is to raise revenue to support government, fine. I mean, you got to support government somehow. So tariffs are one way to do it. In fact, tariffs are better than an income tax. But if the goal of a tariff is to protect a local business from competition, I think that's misguided. I think the more competition, the better. And I don't care if it's global competition. American cars are a lot better because they compete with European cars and Japanese cars, and Korean cars. The more competition, the better. And so if a government tries to limit competition through tariffs, it's not a good thing. It's not good for the economy. It's certainly not good for their consumers. Right? If you're a consumer, you want as much competition as possible, right? Just, if you live in one state, do you just want to have businesses in your state? No, you want to be able to buy products that are made in other states. Well, you want to be able to buy products made in other countries. And it actually makes American industries more competitive because let's say there's a component that I need for something I'm manufacturing. If I can source that component cheaper from Korea than, let's say, the United States, that's where I want to get that component because it makes my end product more competitive because those components are less expensive. But if you force me to buy the component from an American company that's more expensive, now my product is more expensive on global markets. And now maybe I can't compete. So a lot of times the tariffs, maybe they make one company protect one company, but at the expense of others. So it's not a good thing. And two wrongs don't make a right. And so just because, let's say you say, hey, here's some bad policies in China or Japan or Canada where they're protecting a particular industry with these high tariffs. All right, if they want to shoot themselves in the foot, if they want to do something that hurts their citizens, we don't retaliate by hurting our own citizens. The best policy is just free trade. And if somebody else doesn't want to have free trade, that's their loss. Anyway, that's it for today's podcast. I think I'm going to do one more before the end of the week. It should be a very interesting week in the markets as people kind of digest what's going on in the early Trump administration. Could be a bit of a buy the rumor, sell the fact. We'll see. I mean, they've been buying up the markets on anticipation of the Trump presidency. Well, now that he's president, we'll see what happens. And so I probably want to talk about it towards the end of the week, maybe on Friday. As far as today's podcast, remember, hopefully we didn't have any technical glitches. If you enjoy the podcast, then make sure to like it. Leave me a comment. As you can tell, I read the comments, not all of them, but a lot of them, and I comment on the comments, and I talk about the comments on the podcast if I think the audience will benefit from that discussion. And again, don't forget, sign up for your free subscription to Schiff Sovereign at schiffsovereign.com. We should have a lot of really good material coming at you in 2025. Bye for now.